10 Stoic signs you're dealing with a truly evil person, and how to protect your peace. Not all evil looks like evil. Some of it smiles. Some of it compliments you. Some of it says, "I'm only doing this because I care." And by the time you realize it was never love, never kindness, never concern, you've already lost your peace, your clarity, and parts of yourself you didn't mean to give away. You see, the most dangerous people aren't the loudest. They're the subtle ones. The ones who wear masks of empathy, who say all the right things, but leave you doubting your worth, confused about your reality, and exhausted from emotional battles you never signed up for. Evil, as the Stoics understood, isn't just action. It's intent. It's pattern. It's the deliberate and repeated erosion of truth, freedom, and virtue, disguised as something else. And the worst part? You often don't see it, until it's too late. Because most of us want to believe the best in people. We confuse charm with character. And we assume someone's closeness must mean safety. But the Stoics didn't live that way. They didn't just study logic, they applied it. They judged people not by how they spoke, but by how they lived. Not by what they promised, but by what they consistently produced. And when they saw a person acting against virtue, against reason, against nature, against truth, they didn't excuse it. They named it. And they stepped away. Because you can't live a rational, virtuous life if you're constantly surrounded by chaos, manipulation, and deception. Even the strongest minds will corrode in the wrong environment. This video is not about judging others from a moral high ground. It's not about labeling people with anger or arrogance. It's about protection. Protection of what matters most. Your clarity, your peace, your ability to stay aligned with your values. That is what Stoicism is really about. Not detachment for the sake of apathy, but discipline for the sake of integrity. So in this video, you'll learn 10 Stoic signs you're dealing with a truly destructive person. Not someone who made a mistake, but someone who repeats harm with intent, who consistently violates trust, who erodes truth while pretending to stand on it. You'll recognize how they charm while controlling, how they isolate while saying, "I care," how they gaslight, guilt-trip, manipulate, and slowly dismantle your sense of self. And most importantly, how to reclaim your peace, without bitterness, without revenge, but with absolute clarity. Because as Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say or think or do. Only what you do." This video will not teach you to hate them. It will teach you to see them. To see through the performance. To protect your time, your mind, and your path, before it's taken from you. So if you've ever felt like something was off, if you've ever left a conversation feeling smaller, but couldn't explain why, if you've ever been made to question your memory, your values, or your voice, this is your wake-up call. You're not too sensitive. You're not overreacting. You're seeing clearly, maybe for the first time. And now, it's time to respond like a Stoic. With reason. With distance. With strength. Let's begin. 1. They charm everyone, but crush you quietly. They're adored by your friends. They're praised at work. They're charismatic, clever, and socially graceful. Everyone says, "You're lucky to have them." But behind closed doors, it's different. You feel drained after conversations. You second-guess yourself constantly. You start apologizing for things you didn't even do. And worst of all, you begin to believe it's you. That maybe you're the problem. That maybe you're just too sensitive, too emotional, too hard to love. This is the brilliance, and the brutality, of the charming manipulator. They don't destroy you with punches. They destroy you with smiles. In Stoic terms, this is a person who violates reason through performance. They prioritize image over virtue. They weaponize perception to maintain control. Because as long as others think highly of them, you become invisible in your pain. Epictetus taught, when someone is properly grounded in life, they shouldn't have to look outside themselves for approval. But people like this? They depend on admiration. They thrive on appearing perfect. And that means your truth, your confusion, your pain, your quiet resistance must be erased to protect their image. So they charm. They charm your family. They charm your friends. They charm your coworkers. And if you ever try to speak out, you're met with doubt. Really? I've only ever seen them be so kind. You sure you're not just overthinking it? Maybe you're taking it too personally. Now the damage is doubled. You're not only hurt. You're now isolated in that hurt. And this is what makes charm such a dangerous mask. It buys them cover. It gives them time. It makes you doubt your instincts. But the Stoic doesn't live in illusion. The Stoic lives in reality, even when that reality is uncomfortable. You must ask, do they show you the same respect in private that they show others in public? Do their words uplift in the crowd but diminish behind doors? Do they light up the room, but dim your self-worth? Charm, in and of itself, is not evil. But charm without virtue? That's manipulation. And you must see it for what it is. Here's how a Stoic begins to respond. 1. Observe patterns, not moments. Don't be fooled by occasional kindness. Look at the consistency. Is their praise always conditional? Does their warmth vanish the moment you assert yourself? 2. Trust your inner compass. If something feels off, honor that feeling. You don't need public approval to validate private truth. As Marcus Aurelius reminds, if it's not right, don't do it. If it's not true, don't say it. 3. Stop performing peace to keep the illusion alive. You don't need to smile through manipulation. You don't need to protect someone's image at the cost of your reality. Your discomfort is information. Your resentment is a signal. And your silence will only feed their control. You owe no one the benefit of the doubt when your soul is quietly crumbling. You owe yourself clarity. So the next time you hear someone say, "But they are so charming," respond silently, stoically, and powerfully. They might be. But charm without respect is just decoration hiding damage. And I've decided to stop confusing the two. Let that be your beginning. 2. They lack empathy, and you're always left empty. You open up. You share your fears, your frustrations, your failures. You expect, at the very least, to be heard. Not fixed. Not pitted. Just heard. But instead they deflect. They minimize. They change the subject. Or worse, they make it about them. You cry. They sigh. You explain. They roll their eyes. And slowly, almost invisibly, the space between your heart and their presence widens. You feel lonelier with them than when you're alone. This is what it's like to be with someone who lacks empathy. Not someone who's emotionally unavailable for a moment, but someone who is consistently, strategically, emotionally absent. Epictetus wrote, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." But people like this, they don't listen to understand. They listen to dismiss. Or worse, to arm themselves with what you said so they can use it against you later. Empathy isn't a luxury. It's a foundation. Without it, there is no trust, no connection, no repair. A person who lacks empathy isn't neutral. They're dangerous. Because they don't feel bad when they hurt you. They don't pause when you pull away. They don't reflect when you're in pain. They just continue. Because to them, your feelings are inconvenient at best, and manipulative at worst. And here's the trap. You keep trying harder. You try to explain better. You think, maybe if I say it the right way, they'll finally get it. They won't. Not because you're unclear, but because they're unwilling. Their emotional world is shallow, closed, and self-centered. Your depth threatens their detachment. Your vulnerability exposes their vacancy. So they retreat. Or worse, they mock it. And each time this happens, a little part of you learns. Don't bring that up again. It's not safe here. And that's how you lose your voice. That's how they win. But the Stoic doesn't beg for empathy. The Stoic observes its absence and makes decisions accordingly. You are not weak for needing connection. You are wise for recognizing where it's missing and choosing to stop pouring into an empty vessel. Here's how a Stoic protects themselves. 1. Stop confusing emotional intelligence with emotional availability. They may say all the right things, but do their actions align? Do they ever check on you without being prompted? Do they respond to your pain with presence or silence? 2. Test their curiosity. Share something vulnerable. Watch, do they lean in or drift away? Genuine empathy leans in, without trying to fix, defend, or dismiss. 3. Set a hard boundary around your emotional energy. You are not a proving ground. You are not a therapist. You are not a punching bag for someone else's emotional immaturity. You do not owe explanations to someone who lacks the willingness to even care. The Stoics knew the power of presence. They valued connection that was rooted in virtue, truth, justice, courage, temperance. Not charm. Not image. Not ego. So if someone consistently leaves you feeling worse after opening up, if your pain is always met with a shrug, a smirk, or silence, believe that. Not everyone deserves your softness. Especially not those who see it as weakness. Walk away. Not to punish them, but to protect what they never learned how to hold. Your humanity. 3. They manipulate your mind, gaslighting and guilt. They don't scream. They don't threaten. They don't even have to raise their voice. They just twist your words, your memory, your meaning. And suddenly you find yourself apologizing for things you never did. Second-guessing what you know you said. Wondering if you're the one who's too sensitive, overthinking, or always creating drama. This isn't a misunderstanding. This is gaslighting. It's psychological warfare dressed up as misunderstanding. It's not about disagreement. It's about distortion. And the goal isn't clarity. It's control. Because if they can make you doubt your reality, they can make you depend on theirs. Epictetus said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." Gaslighters believe they are always right. So instead of understanding you, they reshape you. They say, "That's not what I said. You always twist things. You're being dramatic. I never promised that. You're imagining things." And you begin to wonder, maybe I am. Maybe it's my fault. But here's the Stoic truth. Clarity is a virtue. Deception is not. People who love you don't play games with your memory. They don't punish your perception. They don't erode your sense of trust in yourself. And guilt? That's their favorite tool. They make you feel guilty for asking for basic respect. Guilty for needing reassurance. Guilty for catching them in a lie. Guilty for reacting to the pain they caused. Soon, you're managing their emotions while suppressing your own. You're walking on eggshells in conversations you didn't even start. You're apologizing just to restore temporary peace. But peace built on distortion is not peace. It's quiet control. And the longer you stay in it, the harder it becomes to hear your own mind over their voice in your head. So how does the Stoic respond? Not by reacting with rage. Not by trying to win the argument. But by recognizing the game and exiting it. Here's how. 1. Document your truth. When you sense gaslighting, write down the facts. Not for them to convince, but for you to remember. You don't owe anyone your sanity for the sake of harmony. 2. Stop defending your reality to someone who benefits from your confusion. If every time you speak your truth they dismiss it, mock it, or twist it, they're not listening. They're reframing. That's not dialogue. That's domination. 3. Set limits with absolute clarity. Say, I will not continue this conversation if you keep invalidating my experience. Or simply, that's not true, and I won't debate it. Then disengage. Gaslighters thrive on reaction. They feed on your need to prove, explain, or fix. The Stoic doesn't feed them. They exit the spiral. They hold their ground. They trust their clarity, without requiring permission to keep it. You were not born confused. You were conditioned to question yourself by someone who feared your certainty. But now your clarity is your rebellion. Your peace is your power. Your refusal to argue about reality is your liberation. You don't have to win. You just have to walk. And in walking you win everything back they tried to dismantle. 4. They isolate you, slowly but surely. It never starts with a cage. It starts with a suggestion. They don't really care about you. I just want to protect you. I'm the only one who truly understands you. It sounds like concern. It feels like love. But over time, it becomes something else. Separation. From your friends. From your family. From your routines. From your sense of self. Isolation doesn't arrive all at once. It creeps in. It disguises itself as exclusivity. You and me against the world. But soon it becomes you and only me. Epictetus warned. Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. But manipulators crave control. And your connections are a threat to that control. So they chip away. They criticize your best friend. They plant seeds of doubt about your parents. They roll their eyes when you make plans with anyone else. They turn every outside relationship into a potential betrayal. You begin canceling plans. You stop sharing things. You pull away, because it's easier than defending your right to connect. And the result? You're alone. But not in solitude. In silence. Not because you chose peace, but because they engineered your isolation. The Stoics valued community. They believed in the power of shared reason, of meaningful connection. Even Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, reminded himself that he is a part of the whole, not above it. But those who seek to isolate you don't want you part of anything larger. Because when you're isolated, you're easier to shape, to sway, to silence. So how do you respond like a Stoic? 1. Notice the pattern, not the excuse. They'll always say it's for your good. That others are toxic. That you're safer with just them. But ask, are my connections shrinking or growing? Are you being empowered or enclosed? 2. Reclaim your right to be connected. The people who truly love you won't make you choose. They won't punish your independence. They won't guilt you for having a life outside of them. 3. Reconnect strategically. Quietly. Powerfully. Reach back to those who know the real you. Not with shame. Not with apology. Just with truth. I see more clearly now. And I'm coming back. Isolation is subtle because it mimics intimacy. But true intimacy allows space, not confinement. It supports growth, not dependency. It respects your bonds, not erases them. And when you find yourself drifting from everyone you once loved, when you can't remember the last time you had a conversation that didn't require explanation, stop. Ask, who benefits from my disconnection? Because if it's not you, it's time to reclaim yourself. The Stoic doesn't live in isolation. They live in integrity. They choose connection rooted in reason, not fear. They don't cut people off to feel powerful. They set themselves free to remain grounded. So if you've woken up to find yourself alone in a way that feels engineered, not chosen, you're not overreacting. You're finally seeing the pattern. And that awareness? That's step one toward walking back to yourself. And back to the people who never tried to pull you away in the first place. 5. They control your choices, while pretending to care. Control rarely shows up as force. It often arrives as concern. I just want what's best for you. You're not thinking clearly right now. Let me help you make the right decision. And just like that, what felt like love becomes a leash. They start small. Helping you organize your schedule. Giving feedback on your goals. Suggesting you wait before doing that thing you're excited about. You listen, because they say it with calm words and soft tones. But beneath the softness is pressure. Beneath the care is control. You want to travel? They make you feel selfish. You want to take a new job? They question your loyalty. You want to spend time with someone else? They say, why would you need anyone but me? Suddenly, your life isn't yours anymore. It's a series of approvals. A negotiation between your desires and their comfort. This isn't love. This is control disguised as care. Marcus Aurelius wrote, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. But people like this don't want you to advance. They want you to orbit around them. Their fears, their insecurities, their need to dominate gently, so you don't even realize it's happening. And when you resist, they escalate. They don't say, you're wrong. They say, you're confused. They don't shout, they withhold approval. They turn their silence into a punishment. This type of control is more dangerous than aggression. Because it's harder to name. Harder to prove. Easier to justify. But the Stoic doesn't ask for permission to live. The Stoic lives in alignment with reason and virtue. Not someone else's comfort zone. Here's how you reclaim your agency. 1. Ask, are my decisions still mine? If you hesitate before acting, just to predict their mood, you're not deciding. You're managing. True love does not require that you shrink to stay safe. 2. Track how they respond when you assert yourself. Do they support your independence? Or challenge it through guilt? Do they celebrate your success? Or question it subtly? Stoic clarity demands honesty. Not just from them, but from you. 3. Stop performing obedience to avoid discomfort. Yes, choosing for yourself may trigger conflict. But suppressing your will guarantees internal chaos. As Seneca said, no man is free who is a slave to his body. Likewise, no mind is free that is a slave to someone else's disguised demands. Love rooted in fear is not love. And concern that suffocates your freedom is not care. It's camouflage. You are not hard to lead. You're just hard to manipulate. And they know that. That's why they've softened the leash. Because if they controlled you openly, you'd walk. But when they dress it in worry, in protection, in, I just want what's best, you second-guess yourself. You shrink. you ask for permission to dream again. But the Stoic doesn't ask for permission. They live by principle. They examine every influence and ask, does this bring me closer to my nature, or further from it? You know the answer. You've known it for a while. It's time to reclaim your life. Decision by decision. Boundary by boundary. Truth by truth. Because if someone truly loves you, they won't need to control you. They'll trust you to lead yourself. And if they don't trust that, it's not your job to prove your worth. It's your job to protect it. 6. They use threats and intimidation to maintain power. When charm fails, they escalate. And when guilt stops working, they use fear. Not always loud, not always physical, but unmistakable. A look, a pause, a lowered voice, a joke that lands like a warning. They don't say, if you leave me, I'll destroy you. They say, you'll never find someone who understands you like I do. They don't shout, you can't survive without me. They say, I've seen what happens to people who walk away from someone like me. They turn conflict into a quiet battleground. They plant fear into your decisions. And they make sure you never feel fully safe in your own voice. This is intimidation, disguised as intensity. It's how they hold the reins when influence no longer works. Seneca wrote, he who fears death will never do anything worthy of a living man. But fear doesn't just come from the thought of death. It comes from the death of peace, the death of self-trust, the slow erosion of your ability to say what you mean, without calculating the consequences of their reaction. You start editing yourself. You measure your tone. You speak in half-truths to avoid the whole explosion. This isn't a relationship. It's a negotiation with a hostage-taker. And sometimes, the threat isn't even directed at you. It's aimed at your dreams, your job, your friendships, your identity. If you do this, I'll make sure you regret it. If you say that, don't expect me to stay quiet. But here's what the Stoic knows. You cannot build peace on fear. You cannot walk freely if your steps are controlled by potential backlash. True love never uses intimidation as leverage. And true strength never needs to. So how does a Stoic respond? 1. Recognize fear for what it is, information. It tells you where the power imbalance lives. Not to submit to it, but to strategize around it. 2. Remove yourself from psychological warfare. Do not try to reason with someone who weaponizes fear. Do not match their energy. Do not play their game. As Marcus Aurelius said, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. 3. Restore your own sovereignty, internally first. Ask, if I no longer feared their reaction, what would I say? What would I choose? What would I leave? Then act, not rashly, but deliberately. Threats work best on those who feel small. So your first rebellion is to stop shrinking. You may not be able to confront them yet. You may not feel strong enough to leave. But you can start by refusing to flinch inside. Don't flinch at their silence. Don't flinch at their words. Don't flinch at the imagined consequences they dangle in front of you like chains. Because a Stoic knows. What you fear owns you. And what you face loses power. You don't need to fight them. You don't need to expose them. You don't even need to explain yourself. You just need to stop responding to fear as if it's truth. And once you do, their intimidation becomes what it's always been. A bluff built on your silence. Break that silence. Stand still. And let their threats fall like echoes that no longer reach you. 7. They lie pathologically, and make you doubt yourself. They don't just lie to protect themselves. They lie to control the entire narrative. And they're good at it. So good, in fact, that even when you catch them, you start doubting yourself. It's not one big lie. It's 1,000 small distortions. Half-truths. Changed details. Missing context. And when you question it, they turn it on you. You misunderstood. You're imagining things. Why would I lie about something so small? But that's exactly the trick. They don't lie about everything, just enough to create instability. Just enough to keep the truth slippery. And once the truth slips, so does your confidence. Seneca wrote, "A liar is not believed even when he speaks the truth." But pathological liars don't care about being believed forever. They only care about being believed long enough to maintain their advantage. They change their story mid-conversation. They deny promises they clearly made. They rewrite the past right in front of you. And when you protest, they flood you with doubt. Why are you always so suspicious? You never let anything go. You twist everything I say. And just like that, you start twisting your own thoughts. Before they ever get out of your mouth, you become your own censor. That's how deep their lies go. Because in the hands of someone manipulative, lying isn't about covering something up. It's about wearing you down. Until you stop asking. Until you stop challenging. Until you stop trusting yourself. This is not a failure of memory. This is a strategy of erosion. And it's working, if you find yourself doing these things. Writing things down just to double-check if they happened. Replaying conversations in your head like courtroom evidence. Apologizing when you're the one who got misled. Losing your grip on what used to be obvious. But the Stoic is not obsessed with proving truth to liars. The Stoic is obsessed with preserving clarity. So how do you restore that clarity? 1. Stop arguing about the details. Watch the patterns. A liar thrives in isolated moments. But they can hide their pattern. Look beyond the words. Track the consistency of their character, not just the convenience of their explanations. 2. Affirm your memory, without permission. You don't need their agreement to know what happened. You were there. You felt what you felt. You heard what you heard. And when someone tries to edit your reality, respond silently. I trust my perception more than your performance. 3. Practice radical internal honesty. The antidote to external deceit is internal truth. Even if no one else believes you. Even if you have no proof to show. Stand with your truth. As Marcus Aurelius reminds, if it is not true, don't say it. If it is not right, don't do it. That includes the lies you begin to tell yourself to survive the tension. Lies, repeated often enough, don't just destroy trust in others. They destroy trust in yourself. And that's the real goal. Not just to trick you, but to train you to stop trusting your own mind. But once you see it, once you realize this is not confusion but a tactic, you no longer have to explain, prove, or untangle. You simply choose a new standard. Only truth stays. Anything else is removed, quietly, completely, without negotiation. And in that clarity, you begin to remember. You are not the confused one. You are the one who saw through the confusion and walked anyway. 8. They break you down, but blame you for falling. At first, it's subtle. A joke at your expense. A criticism disguised as concern. A correction in public, followed by praise in private. And you let it go, because you don't want to overreact. But it happens again. And again. And again. And soon you're not sure if you're shrinking to be loved. Or just trying to avoid being targeted. They chip away. at your confidence, at your ideas, at your sense of self. They tell you you're too sensitive, right after saying something cutting. They say you can't take feedback, when it's really just abuse in a softer tone. They convince you you're always the one starting the fight, when really, you're just reacting to 1,000 invisible wounds. And when you finally push back, they act surprised. You're being aggressive. You've changed. You're the problem. Now, not only are you hurting, you're responsible for the hurt. Epictetus wrote, "It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them." And people like this are masters at shaping your opinion. Especially your opinion of yourself. They break you down, then blame you for the cracks. They set the fire, then call you dramatic for screaming. They deny the pattern, then demand gratitude for the moments they didn't cause pain. It's emotional whiplash. And over time, you learn to distrust your own instincts. You tell yourself, maybe I am too reactive. Maybe it really is me. Maybe I deserve this. But here's the truth. You don't. This isn't conflict. This isn't misunderstanding. This is systematic erosion, disguised as a relationship. And the more you try to explain your pain to someone who caused it, the more they use your explanation as ammunition. So what does the Stoic do? Not react, not retaliate, but recognize. 1. Look at how you feel when you leave them. Peaceful? Empowered? Safe? Or drained, defensive, self-doubting? Your nervous system is wiser than your rationalizations. 2. Stop accepting small-scale cruelty as normal. Just because they're not yelling, doesn't mean they're not harming. Just because they're not leaving bruises, doesn't mean they're not leaving damage. Respect isn't measured by absence of aggression. It's measured by the presence of kindness, especially under pressure. 3. Refuse to carry the blame they hand you. You are not broken because you're hurting. You are breaking free because you finally see what's happening. No more rewriting the story to make them comfortable. No more apologizing for standing up for yourself. As Marcus Aurelius said, "If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth. But if someone uses your search for truth to deepen your shame, they are not leading you. They are leveraging you. They will call your strength selfish. They will call your boundary dramatic. They will say your voice is too loud, because they've benefited from your silence. But the moment you stop needing their validation is the moment they lose their grip. Let them blame. Let them spin. Let them try to rewrite history. You no longer live there. You've moved into a space where peace isn't earned by pleasing, but by seeing clearly and choosing differently. They broke you down. But what they didn't expect is that you would build yourself back without them. Stronger, clearer, untouchable. 9. They violate your boundaries, subtly at first, then aggressively. It starts small. They borrow your things without asking. They read your messages and call it curiosity. They show up uninvited, but say it's because they miss you. You hesitate to speak up, because it feels petty. You don't want to seem uptight, so you let it slide. That was the test. Because once they know your boundary can be bent, they begin to push, bit by bit, inch by inch, until compromise becomes control. Suddenly your time isn't yours. Your privacy doesn't exist. Your decisions must be cleared with them, and your silence is interpreted as permission. They ask questions with no right to the answers. They make demands with no respect for your limits. They make you feel guilty for saying no, and punished when you say nothing. But this isn't love. This is entitlement. This is possession. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And when you're constantly bending your lines to avoid their reaction, your soul begins to fade. Because boundaries are not about pushing people away. They're about protecting your peace. And anyone who punishes you for protecting your peace was never interested in peace to begin with. They'll say, "You used to be more open. You've changed. You don't trust me." And they're right. You have changed. You do protect yourself now. You do trust your instincts more than their excuses. That's not cold. That's growth. Here's how the Stoic responds. 1. Name the boundary, even if it's small. You don't need to justify your limits. You don't need to explain your why to people who keep crossing your no. State it once, calmly. Then hold it, firmly. 2. Watch what happens next. The moment you draw a line, their mask will slip. Respectful people adjust. Controlling people retaliate. The reaction tells you everything. 3. Don't negotiate your worth. You're not being too much. You're simply refusing to be made small for their comfort. Seneca said, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you." And anyone who consistently disrespects your boundaries isn't improving your life. They're training you to betray yourself. Boundaries are a declaration. I respect myself too much to let this continue. And they'll try to test that. Through charm. Through pressure. Through guilt. Through silence. But the Stoic doesn't collapse when tested. The Stoic doesn't redraw the line because someone raised their voice. The Stoic stands still. Not out of anger. Not out of pride. But because peace isn't passive. Peace is protected. And sometimes the most powerful thing you'll ever say is, "No. That's not okay with me." And then, you walk away. With no explanation. No debate. No apology. Because the people meant for you will never make you bleed to keep them close. And the people who can't honor a boundary were never safe to begin with. 10. They steal your peace, unless you take it back. They didn't break in. You let them in. Not because you were weak, but because you were open. You believed. You trusted. You gave. And slowly, they took your voice, your confidence, your focus, your peace. Not all at once. Not violently. Quietly. Incrementally. Strategically. Until one day, the silence in your mind isn't stillness. It's confusion. The stillness in your body isn't calm. It's shut down. And now you're living in survival mode. Overthinking everything. Bracing for impact. Numb in places that used to be bright. That's what peace theft looks like. It's not chaos. It's slow corrosion. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. But when someone's been shaping your thoughts, rewriting your memories, controlling your reactions, you forget that. You think peace is something they can give you again. If only they change. If only they say sorry. If only they treat you better. But here's the Stoic truth. You don't get peace from them. You get peace by removing them from the equation. Because if someone can take your peace, it means you've given them access to something sacred. Without accountability. And that ends now. Here's how a Stoic reclaims peace. 1. Acknowledge the loss. Yes, they took something. Your light dimmed. Your boundaries blurred. You lost time, energy, self-trust. Name it. Feel it. but don't stay there. 2. Take back control through conscious disconnection. Block. Unfollow. Stop explaining. Stop checking in. Stop reopening the wound to see if it still bleeds. You don't need their permission to begin healing. 3. Rebuild with intention, not reaction. Don't try to become better, just to prove they were wrong. Grow because you remember who you are without them. That's Stoic healing, quiet, clear, and rooted in virtue, not vengeance. They stole your peace, because they knew it was valuable. Because they knew your light intimidated them. Because they needed you to feel lost, so they could feel powerful. But now you know. And once you see the theft, you don't beg to be treated better. You protect yourself differently. You become unavailable to manipulation, immune to flattery, unbothered by silence. You stop explaining your decisions. You stop defending your truth. You stop sacrificing your peace for people who treat it like it's disposable. You don't yell. You don't plead. You don't make a scene. You just say, silently, inwardly, and with finality, "This ends with me." And you mean it. Not with hatred, but with honor. Because peace is not passive. Peace is your highest boundary, and your strongest response. You take it back by remembering. You never lost your power. You just gave it to someone who didn't deserve it. Now you reclaim it. Day by day. Breath by breath. Boundary by boundary. This is the Stoic way. This is your way now. Let them go, not with hate, but with wisdom. You saw the signs. Not all at once. Not clearly at first. But you saw them. The manipulation. The guilt. The control. The silence. The erosion of your peace in exchange for their comfort. And for a while, you tolerated it. Because you thought love meant patience. Because you didn't want to give up. Because you believed that maybe, just maybe, they would change. But now you know. It's not your job to heal someone who chooses to harm. It's not your duty to carry someone who refuses to walk beside you. It's not your purpose to trade your peace for their presence. You don't need revenge. You don't need a final word. You don't even need them to understand what they did. You only need one thing. Release. Release the story that kept you small. Release the version of yourself that accepted less. Release the need to be understood by someone who benefits from misunderstanding you. And most importantly, release them. Not with bitterness. Not with rage. But with wisdom. Because wisdom says, "I don't hate you. I just finally see you clearly. And that clarity is enough." Seneca wrote, "It is the power of the mind to be unconquerable. And this is where that power lives. Not in how loud you speak, but in how calmly you walk away. Not in proving your worth, but in no longer allowing it to be questioned. Not in fixing the other, but in finally choosing yourself." So here you are. You've listened. You've reflected. You've remembered what peace feels like. Now protect it like it's sacred, because it is. Don't open the door again for someone who only knocks to steal. You don't owe your future to someone who tried to rewrite your past. You don't owe your energy to anyone who drained it without care. You don't owe your love to someone who weaponized it. You owe yourself freedom. You owe yourself dignity. You owe yourself peace. So walk. Not away from them, but toward yourself. Toward the version of you who no longer explains, no longer bends, no longer apologizes for needing space, silence, and sovereignty. That version? They've been waiting. And now it's time. Let them go. Not because you're cold, but because you're finally clear. And that is what Stoic wisdom looks like in real life. If this video spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Like it, so the algorithm sends it to someone else who needs it. Subscribe to True Stoic Mindset, where peace isn't just a feeling, but a philosophy. Watch next. 10 Stoic Boundaries that Protect Your Mental Peace. Or, The Stoic Comeback, Rebuilding After Manipulation. Comment below. Which sign opened your eyes the most, and what boundary will you honor from now on? You're not broken. You're awakening. And your peace begins now.